Everything starts with a vision. Everything. A vision clear enough that you can almost taste it, almost touch it, almost see it standing right in front of you before it's actually arrived. Not a vague hope, not a general direction. A specific, unshakable picture of what you're building and why it matters. Clear enough that it fires you up, not in a motivational sense, but in the kind of way that makes you actually move toward it. Because here's what most people skip in the conversation about building a life on purpose. You cannot build what you cannot see. And that's what we're getting into today. By the end of this episode, you're going to understand why clarity of vision isn't optional. And you're going to know what to do if you haven't yet gotten specific enough about what you're actually building toward. I'm Caren, and this is The Rewrite, a podcast about finding the courage to pursue the life you already know you're meant to live. Whether you have been with me since the beginning or this is your first time here, welcome. Every episode stands completely on its own, so you can start right here. And before we dive in, if what I bring to the show resonates with you, I want to ask you to subscribe and follow. Every subscription, every share does more than support this show. It puts this conversation in front of someone who may need it exactly when they need it most. These small things genuinely make a difference in this world, and I believe that with everything in me, so thank you very much. Today, we're getting into the foundation of everything we've been building toward in this phase. The momentum, the discipline, the intentional work of building a life on purpose. All of it rests on what we're talking about today, the vision that makes all of it possible. But before we get into this episode, I want to say something quickly to those of you who have been following along. In the last episode, I told you that this week's conversation, we'd be talking about what momentum actually looks and feels like from the inside, and we'll get there. That episode is coming, but between then and now, something landed on my heart that I couldn't shake. A message that I felt needed to come first, before the momentum conversation. Because honestly, without what we're talking about today, momentum doesn't have the foundation it needs to hold. So trust me on this one. We're exactly where we need to be. Here's something I've noticed about people who are working hard but not getting where they want to go. It's rarely a discipline or motivation problem. It's rarely even a timing problem. Most of the time, it's a clarity problem. They're moving, sometimes moving fast, but they've never gotten specific enough about what they're actually building toward. And movement without a clear destination is exhausting in a way that's hard to explain. It feels like effort without arrival, like running towards something you can't quite see. And I want to reference something here, not to preach, but because it speaks directly to what we're talking about today. Proverbs 29:18 says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." Now, I understand what this verse truly meant in its original context. It speaks to divine revelation and what happens to a people when they have no access to God's word or prophetic guidance. But the principle it points to translates powerfully to what we're talking about today. Because when there's no clear picture of what you're building, when there's no vision driving your direction, the same thing happens on a personal level. You feel stuck even when you're moving, unsettled even when things are going well, like something's missing that you can't quite put into words, because something is. The picture of where you are going. I want to tell you what a clear vision actually feels like from the inside, not the motivational poster version, the real version. It feels like being so certain about something that you can almost taste it, almost touch it, almost see it standing in front of you before it actually arrived. It makes your heart race, not in a restless way, but the way of someone who knows exactly where they're going and can't wait to get there. And here's what that clarity does that vague hoping never can. It makes you move, not because someone told you to or because a deadline is approaching, but because the vision is so real inside of you that staying still starts to feel like the more uncomfortable option. That's the difference between a wish and a vision. A wish sits in you passively. A vision pulls you forward actively. And I want to share something I haven't fully talked about on this show. When I was in my early 30s, I had a moment that I can only describe as a vision. I saw myself on a platform speaking to thousands of people, clear as anything I've ever seen with my own eyes. And in that moment, something shifted that's never shifted back. It all made sense that why, from a young age, I've been pulled towards certain things, why I was always so drawn to psychology, to self help, to public speaking, to understanding people and what makes them move. I never had a clear answer for any of it until that very moment. That vision wasn't a fantasy. It was a confirmation of something that had been true about me long before I had a name for it. I'm 50 now, and I'm still moving toward what I saw in that moment almost 2 decades ago. Not because I never doubted or because the path was always clear, but because that vision was specific enough and real enough that I couldn't brush past it and pretend I hadn't seen and felt the beautiful overwhelm from it. And the first thing I did after that vision was tell someone. And that right there was the alignment I didn't even know had already begun. Because the very person I told introduced me to Toastmasters International. I didn't go searching for it. I didn't research it. I had never even heard of it before. I simply shared what I had seen, and the next step showed up through the person I trusted enough to tell. For those who aren't familiar, Toastmasters is an international organization that helps people develop their public speaking and leadership skills in a supportive, structured environment. It's used by everyone from beginners who are terrified to speak in a room full of people to seasoned professionals who want to sharpen their skills and their delivery. I joined and began developing the speaking skills the vision is going to require. And around the same time, I enrolled in university to study psychology, not because it was connected to my career, but because I wanted to understand human behavior and thinking at a deeper level, to strengthen myself as a speaker and eventually as an author, to build the foundation the vision was asking me to build. None of that felt like strategy at the time. It felt like response, like the vision had created a pool and I was simply following it. And looking back, I now understand that all of it was alignment. Every step taken toward that vision was God positioning me for what He had already shown to me what was coming. I want to be direct about what it costs someone to keep moving without a clear vision. It isn't just the time loss or the misdirected energy. Those are real costs, but the deeper cost is something I've seen consistently in people who are moving without a clear vision. It's a life that feels unsettled even when things are going well. A life where you're working hard, but something underneath keeps whispering that you're not quite where you're supposed to be. That was me too. That whisper isn't ingratitude or restlessness for its own sake. It's the gap between where your effort is going and where your calling is pointing. And the only way to close that gap is to get specific, to stop moving in a general direction and start moving toward a specific picture of what you're building and why it matters. Here's the honest question underneath all of this. What do you do with a vision when the circumstances around you aren't confirming it? When the metrics haven't moved, when the audience hasn't arrived, when the thing you saw so clearly still feels more like a future possibility than a present reality? For me, the answer has never been to look harder at the circumstances. It's been to look past them. Because my vision is unshakable in a way that makes stopping feel like the less reasonable option. Not because I'm immune to the discouragement, I've talked about that honestly on this show, but because what I saw in that moment in my early 30s was specific enough and real enough that no amount of slow metrics can talk me out of it. I keep my faith in what I'm building. I try to remember to put God at the center of it. Not perfectly, not every time I sit down to record or write, but He's there with me. And I thank Him even when the evidence hasn't yet arrived, even when the numbers haven't confirmed it, even when the outside world hasn't yet seen what I already know is coming. Because the vision came before the confirmation, and that's exactly how it's supposed to work. I want to speak to someone who has a sense of what they're meant to build, but hasn't gotten specific enough to actually see it clearly. Here's what I want you to understand. Movement toward what you feel called to do will build the clarity you need. You don't have to have the full picture before you take the first step, but you do have to pay attention to what you feel pulled toward. My vision came as a single moment of clarity, but it was also the result of years of paying attention to what consistently pulled at me. The draw towards psychology, toward public speaking, toward understanding people and what moves them. All of it rooted in a passion and compassion for people that had always been at the core of who I am, long before I understood why it kept pulling me toward those things. Those threads had always been there. The vision simply tied them together into a picture I could finally see whole. And the moment I saw it, I shared it. That one action, telling someone what I had seen, set everything else in motion. So if you're still waiting for the clarity to come, start there. Move toward what pulls you. Pay attention to what you can't stop thinking about. And when something inside you rises up and says, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be going, don't brush past that. That is the moment worth paying attention to. Before the next episode, here's what I want you to do. Find 15 minutes of quiet. No phone, no noise, just you and whatever you've been feeling pulled toward. And write down your honest answer to this question. If I could see exactly what I'm building 5 years from now, what would it look like and how would it make me feel? Write it down and be as specific as you can. Not what you hope might happen, but what you see and how it makes you feel. Because you can't build what you can't see. And the clearer the vision, the more directly everything you do can move toward it. If you want a structured place to do this work, I put together a free 10-week workbook that walks you through everything we've covered in the first 10 episodes of this show. It's completely free and the link is in the description below. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Next time on The Rewrite, we're talking about what momentum actually looks and feels like from the inside. Not the highlight reel version, the real version that looks like an ordinary Tuesday where you showed up anyway, so don't miss it. If this episode landed for you, share it with someone who has been moving hard but hasn't yet gotten clear enough about where they're going. This might be exactly what they need to hear right now. Make sure you're subscribed. New episodes drop every week. This is The Rewrite, because your story isn't finished yet.